what to me was so beautiful about Justin's style is like when we would talk about it, I could tell he was deliberately making these decisions to tell the story, but do it in such a way that is so visually, it's not just interesting, and you would want to kind of go, but it's just, it hangs together in just the fullness of, of the experience in one frame. We're here at Lowertown Lofts Artist Cooperative, fourth floor. Uh, Myself, Julie Stevens, and Justin Terlecki. We both live on the fourth floor here in Lowertown, St. Paul, with there's a total of 29 of us artists who live here. We're here to talk about a piece which was created by Justin, but in some ways is a collaboration of my lived experience and his artistic expression. And so how did the piece come about in terms of why I decided to ask Justin to create it? It has to do with where I came from before I arrived here at the Lofts. For about 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, I lived in a remote location on the western Minnesota prairie. I had been a city person my entire adult life, never lived in the country. I moved to a little town called Watson, Minnesota, population 200. And I guess it was August of 2016. And my goal was to be there, to paint, and to experience something different than I had done. It was owned by a man named Willie for years, and he passed away at 97. And so, yeah, I moved into Willie's house, but very quickly named it Coeur de Rose, Heart of Rose, and Rosemary was my mother's name. So anyway, when I moved here, obviously I started a new chapter of work. While I was out on the prairie, I did a lot of painting right on the edge of a cornfield that I lived on. I had a little, I guess it was a kind of a shack of sorts that was there that held certain big motorized things that people in the country use to keep their grass mowed. Anyway, I was thinking about the fact that I wanted to have something that was my paintings that I captured out there were more an abstract painter. And I thought, I do want a lasting documentation of having been there that's much more concrete than just what I captured from my time there. And having moved to the Lofts, I met Justin, actually knew of him before I met him live, and I knew his work had the capacity to hold what I wanted to capture with a project of this nature. So, I mean, the main reason that I looked to Justin to do the work, and I really didn't even think of like, hey, I have an idea and I'm going to interview a bunch of people to do it. It was more like, oh, I'm thinking it would be really nice to have a concrete representation of something that was really pretty formative in my life. And this is the person that can do it, because I just, consistently in viewing his work saw that he is not just artistically masterful, but he has a depth and a sensitivity to convey layers and layers of meaning and detail that take parts of the whole and make them into something bigger than the whole. So that's what led to me talking to Justin and getting this project off the ground in March of 2020.
Hi, I'm Justin Terlecki, and I was very honored to do this piece for Julie. She came to me with, and it, well, let's back up. It was the very first few weeks that we all were aware of the pandemic, so everyone was a little frazzled, and Julie came to me and asked if I'd be interested in a commission, and I like to say yes to everything, but hearing about it, I was excited to do it because um, I don't really like to just reproduce a image of a place. I like to tell the story of the place and capture, like what Julie was saying, the personal connection to a place, where the viewer can look at it and feel a story and feel that actual humans are part of that space and that memories are being created living there. So we met like 2 or 3 times and just listened to stories about what it was like for her living there and people she met, and she showed me pictures and I asked questions about certain details like what is, or for instance, like what is this? She had images of the shed, which was her art studio, and there was this beautiful circular painting that with geometric shapes, and asking about it, and apparently a friend of hers made it, and it is, I can't remember the details.
It's a barn star, which is like a blessing that would be on the top of a barn and look out into the landscape. So
that was important to capture that detail, and the peace bowl that is in her front yard, which Julie said no one else had peace bowls in Watson, Minnesota. And her dog that lived there that's now in doggy heaven. So I wanted to capture her dog, Stella, yes. And it's not really accurate in terms of seasons, but I wanted to throw it all in there because like the cornfields would not be this lush while the tree is in spring bloom. But I mean, I love the color of the tree. Is it a crab apple or?
Yeah, flowering crab apple, very old. What you just pointed out, I think to me was I didn't know this was gonna come out, in the storytelling, but it's something that is really to me unique and precious about how this turned out. Is it holds so many contradictions, and they come together beautifully. I like that. There's different seasons and different stages because this was a work in progress continually. I mean, I bought this house and it needed a lot of work, and the pictures I sent Justin were like, some of them were here, the driveway hadn't been done yet. You can kind of see it's like kind of gravelly. But eventually I did put in a patio, I did put in a new driveway. But we have here the old driveway and the new patio.
I don't know. I mean, I just really enjoyed capturing the details again, to repeat myself. I mean, I left the garage door open on purpose. Just, I don't know. You see some house portraits and it just looks so static. And I mean, the hose is still in still out, and this plant the rose is not planted, and I don't know. I just love like showing that the cornfield that the wind is kind of blowing it, and I really wanted to show that it really is a prairie. So I wanted to really give a lot of depth to the trees in the background to show that there's a lot of land behind. And also, we talked about it, and I showed Julie some sketches before I started it, and she was happy with the sketches, but she did say, "Could you make the sky bigger?" I was like, "Sure," because that was what she remembered about living there was how beautiful the skies were and the clouds, and so I initially had the horizon line like up here, but pushed it way down, and also I cut down the paper a little bit to make it a little bit longer instead of more to make it more rectangular, to give it more of a panoramic feel. But I mean, like I said, doing it was during a strange time, and it was such a joy to work on a piece of a place that gave Julie so much joy. So it was late spring, so still cold out, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts about the coronavirus. So it was really fun to just get lost in this space. And again, like I was talking about details, like I had these windows, and I didn't want to just paint them gray or put a reflection. So I asked if she had photographs of the living space so I could put some nice little details. And she was talking about some like Japanese pots and plants that she had, and we discussed the exact color of the drape.
Yeah.
That I really wanted to capture that.
It
And
was so intentional. It was fun for me to hear about that adjustment with the big sky. And I love that you made a vanishing point there, that I feel like there was no end to that edge. And a lot of the work that I did standing right on that edge, it reflects that feeling. But, it's a not packed with the same kind of detail. I also, I'm thinking about the front and the archway and your decision to make that. I mean, I deliberately, and I think we did talk about my design, was that this, what you can't see is like there's the road in front of it is where people would come driving up and through this little neighborhood, and I wanted to create an entryway that would go right to the front doors. I deliberately put that archway there, and it in the long-term vision, it would have some cobblestone path, so people would know, walk here through the archway and up to the front door to be part of that. And also the plants, they had 1 year before I left. I put them in the year before I left. It said they were wintered, and I drove past there in the 2020 in June, and they were up almost together on the top of the arch. So that was kind of cool to see.
I'm glad you didn't say they took it out or something.
No.
That'd be sad.
The peace pole was gone, but
No.
but yeah, just for me too, I think what's notable about it is obviously, it creates a lasting memory of a place that was formative for me. And now I have that recall, but I can also help to tell other people about it that will encounter the painting, but it holds more than that because it holds this memory of Justin and I connecting at a time when people were connecting, and we were connecting about something that we both care about. Is like how do we apply our sense of interpreting life and layers that are in life through the art that we do. And so it's just really, it's really a special piece and a special time. I love the open garage with all of the it really was so rustic, so primitive on so many fronts, and yet so much of it kind of intentionally just evolved with the landscape and the neighborhood. What about the grass, Justin? Remember when I told you about grass? Being like everybody loved their grass and mowing the grass all the time, and so I think I said like the capturing of the grass is also a part of it.
Mm-hmm. I ink it first with a fountain pen or a dip pen in waterproof ink. It's actually a grayish ink because it has more of a softer look to it. And let it dry. And I showed it to Julie after I inked it up, and she was pleased with it, which meant I could go forward by adding color, which I love color. But in terms of the grass, I mean everything is very layered. I don't just put down a brush stroke and say that looks good enough. I want to really bring out the richness in color and textures. So like Julie was saying, there's a lot of little lines and a lot of different greens, because if you look at grass, it's very it's many different colors of green. And I'm interested in a realistic approach, but like I was saying, it's more about capturing the atmosphere and recreating a memory instead of a photographic reproduction, because I'm not really interested in that, and I just think it's creates more interest for the viewer to show that artist did it.
I had so much trust. Not that I had even a vision for it, but just a trust that it would go through and be held by Justin's process and who he is and how he comes at the work that he does. That it would become something more than I could imagine, but it would have all the ingredients that reflected an authentic truth about what the place was.